Hello again. So, I'm Kate Grayson. It's good to be back with Wayfarers Chapel. This is a challenging time right now. There is so much going on, and at the same time, for some of us, there's nothing going on. But I cannot listen to the news anymore. I barely even skim the headlines online. I just don't know what to believe. So I scan Facebook and Instagram and Twitter for those short blurbs of information that resonate somewhere inside of me. And then I like the page, or sometimes I share the page, adding my own little witty or cynical comment so I can really drive that point home. I do well for a couple of days. I've been doing pretty well. I go for a walk or a run. I work out. I've got my mountain bike in the living room because we've had a fair amount of rain. And then I hit a wall of inactivity. And I feel that spiral starting to go down. Before it ever goes up, it goes down. And rarely, as it goes down and goes up, does it ever stop at what I would have considered to be normal. And now people are asserting there is no normal. There won't be a normal going forward, but it will be a new normal. And I think, what are they talking about? It's always been a new normal. Every day is a new normal. It was so before the virus, and it will be so after. And in New Thought, and we already know that every day is a new day, and we already know that it's all God. And I think everyone who knows me, and I have said this before, it's no secret, I really, really dislike platitudes. They feel minimizing to me. Like people aren't really listening to what's going on. I know that I use them too. And I do feel that in some ways a platitude is really a form of trying to imply that there is an illusion of balance when someone doesn't know what else to say. When really it's a form of social engineering. And the definition of social engineering is the art of manipulating, influencing, or deceiving someone into taking action. And now we have all these platitudes that are mixed with metaphors and analogies, and we're encouraged to stay home and be self-reflective and get to know ourselves in this new world, which again, is not new. It is simply another day. These statements can have the positive effect of giving you motivation to go on and the openness to accept things as they are. But they can also create the impression that our actions and decisions don't matter. And they are built on the assumption and guilt that God or the universe is putting us through an ordeal as a result of our own actions and choices. Statements like it was all meant to be, or God doesn't give us more than we can handle, is not always as reassuring as people would like them to be. I am aware that these one-liners may strike a chord, and some can even become a resonant affirmation used to raise self-awareness and faith. I have my favorites as well, but in truth, right now, part of me feels like I don't have a spiritual bone in my body. I feel tired, and I'm more than a bit cynical. However, while I may not feel spiritual, I still have faith. And what I know through my faith is that for every action, there is an opposite and equal reaction. Water, as we know, will reach its own level by its own weight. cause and effect equal balance. And the balance of our personal knowledge of God must come from our direct experiences. We must learn the intimate balance of faith and experience for ourselves, cause and effect. Over the past few weeks, I have decided that trying to achieve or find balance is not like trying to get to Florida. You know, it's not a place. Balance is a process. Academically, I know that balance could be either a noun or a verb, depending on the context. But in a spiritual context, I think it's really a verb. Holmes talks about the concept of balance when discussing the book of James, chapter 5, verse 16. And Holmes says that our minds are burdened with many things. Often our religions, which should automatically balance our mentalities, actually suppresses them and creates a morbidness on the subjective side of thought. My interpretation of that is that morbidness happens when we feel like we don't do enough, when we're wrong, or we feel condemned for one reason or another. It can be difficult to remember that the universe does not hold our past against us. That imbalance comes from our own subjective mind and thoughts. We must be self-reflective so we can release the judgment we carry for others and for ourselves. Many of the spiritual texts that we read when speaking of faith go to natural law. When we water a plant, it grows. If we plant corn, we get corn. If we plant a carrot, we get carrots. If we plant a rose bush, we get roses. And this is where I come to my statement that balance is not a noun. It's not a place where we go to rest. It's a verb for an active environment, and that active environment is our own mind. What I found interesting when doing my research for this talk is that there is a lot about finding balance right now out on the internet. Many people are trying to tell us how to find balance if we're not working, how to find balance if we're working from home, how to find balance with the virus, how to find balance when we're walking in the supermarket, or just even how to find physical balance through yoga. Balance. There's a lot of it out there right now. But I thought to myself, just quit looking out there, Catherine. Look to where you've been taught. And so I went to my bookcase and I looked in the index of all these books I have over here. And I looked through the chapter headings for this key word, balance. And then I looked at the Book of Runes and the I Ching. I read through books on Native American spirituality and books for guidance, those sacred path cards or medicine cards or power animal oracle cards, and the tarot, looking for what they say about balance. And what I found interesting is that they all talk about balance as a process of becoming. And that it is the tarot, which is the only deck that has a card for balance. And in a nutshell, it stands for justice and interpretation and discernment. Justice and discernment. Rasha tells us if we find ourselves once again stumbling over the same old pitfalls, then we need to recognize that the lesson has yet to become entrenched sufficiently to allow us to move on or to move past what we're experiencing. If repetitive stumbling is happening, then this is the time to stop what you are doing and examine the dynamics of what continues to draw you into those energy fields. It is in understanding who we are that we find balance. Pema Chodron discusses balance in terms of the spiritual warrior and says that the spiritual warrior walks a path neither looking to the right or to the left or behind us. There is no right or wrong. This is not to say that we do not have responsibility for our actions, but to understand and to do things differently as we walk our paths. Pema says that becoming a spiritual warrior is being able to hold the paradox of our faith, even in places of discomfort or fear. I like that. That a spiritual warrior is one who is able to hold their faith, even in places of discomfort or fear. It is when we stand at these crossroads of discomfort and fear, not knowing which way to go, that we can find ourselves. This is where the rigidity of our views and strongly held beliefs start to dissipate or dissolve, and they make way for new thoughts, new behaviors, new actions. To be comfortable with uncertainty, with ambiguity, is the beginning of experiencing balance. This is also where we learn to have compassion for others and for ourselves. And this is really the balance that we seek. We seek the peace within our own soul. Part of me thinks that balance is like a suitcase. Some of us have very cool looking luggage, and we have the art of packing and unpacking down to a science, especially if we have to fly, and that extra bag can only weigh 50 pounds. If it goes over 50 pounds, we have to pay more for being out of balance with airline regulations. On the outside, the suitcase looks perfect. A little scuffed maybe, but on the inside, there might be just too much stuff. My personal goal is to open up that suitcase and take some things out that have been maybe overused or just been in there for too long. Maybe put in some new things, but to maintain the balance with the contents so I am within the limit and I won't get charged for my excess baggage. Might be a bad metaphor, but I like it. We need to have substantial compassion and patience for who we are on the outside, as well as for the contents that we hold inside. Releasing things that we have carried for so long that have become a part of our identity can be difficult, challenging, and even fear-inducing. My most recent experience with this was a decision to sell my motorcycle. Many of you might remember that I thought about selling it last fall because I needed money for car repairs. Well, it turned out I did not need to sell it. Breathe a sigh of relief. But then just last week, out of the blue, a woman messaged me about the ad I placed 6 months ago and asked me if the motorcycle was still available. What I found during the last week of trying to decide and what am I going to do and all of that, the little cycle that just so started all over again about selling my motorcycle. And what I realized is that the whole issue is that my ego is way out of balance. I think I'm cool riding a motorcycle. My students think I'm cool. I like the look. I like that image of who I think I am or what I project. So who am I without the bike? That's the real question. I am out of balance, being driven by ego. So I called her just today and said if she wanted to make an offer to go ahead. And we'll see where it goes. That the path is clear, and that's what's important to me. What this experience with my motorcycle reminded me is that it's always important to remember that when we choose to not think of something, our thoughts will always be where we left them and at the stage that we left them in. So what to do right now? Different states are starting their process of opening up. Are you really ready to come face to face with the fears and the concerns for ourselves, our families, and our friends? We have had so much negative information over the past 5 weeks. How do we know if it's safe if we can't trust the news or what we're being told? How do we know we are even in danger? We don't. So what I encourage you to do is self-reflect and find your internal knowing of justice and discernment, of balance, and then act accordingly. When we seek wisdom from within, we are always guided back to the basics, to the truth of who we are. We, each one of us, is the light. We are the love. We are the beauty. We are the joy. We are the peace. We are the power. And we are the life of the divine. Know with me that this is the truth of who you are. This is the truth of the balance you seek. And so it is. The next time I see you all, I hope it's face to face. And I can't wait to get a hug from each and every one of you. Know that I love you very much. Be joyful on your path. And so it is.